Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Junkmaster3, and today is actually time for a special type of video. This is actually going to be my favorite, this is like basically a ranking video of Lucio Fulci's horror films. So I'm really glad that I have all of his horror films in my collection as well. I mean, that's the way I watched all of these. So I'm gonna start just for the sake of it. I'm gonna start from the bottom and then move myself upwards towards like number one. So I'll start with the one which is like my least favorite and talk a little bit. I mean, I will pretty much talk a little bit about each and every single film without trying to spoil anything of it, if that makes sense. So, at yeah. So we start with a bottom film, which is my least favorite Lucio Fulci film, at number 21, and that is Door into Silence, which was his very last film he directed, at least according to IMDb. It says it's from 1992, but there's another film that got released after 92, which he also directed, but he directed that in 91. But ultimately, Door into Silence is really his worst film and sadly also his last film. Um, and I'm not sure why. I mean, the thing is, I thought this could have been good because when it comes to Lucio Fulci, most of the time he knows how to build somewhat of an interesting type of atmosphere, even though the storyline might not be that good or like that interesting. But this is just so boring to me. It's for me this film is just basically John Savage driving around in his car for 85% of the film, and that's pretty much it. The other scenes that were like somewhat interesting, there were just way too few for me to even care about. Um, yeah, and he keeps like getting bumping into this like ambulance, and there's like this strange lady trying to follow him, and he doesn't really know why. It's just a confused mess. It seems like Lucio Fulci just wasn't in his right mind when he made this film. So yeah, Door to Silence at number 21. The next one at number 20, which is yeah, you probably know, this is almost as bad as Door to Silence. And genuinely, I mean, generally, I really like Lucio Fulci as a director in general. So I mean, the first, the first like three or four films that I mention here are films that I haven't cared for at all. But yeah, at number 20 we have The Sweet House of Horrors, which is a very, I mean, this is another one which has, I mean, it starts off really promising with like a killer going around in the house, in this type of house where uh, the parents, I believe, gets killed off and by this mysterious killer, and the children are like left for their, I think it's their uncle or their aunt that takes care of them afterwards. But the main problem with this film is that it focuses way too much on the kids than the adults, because the child actors in this film, they are so atrocious and so extremely annoying to the point you just want them to die off right away, and they are basically like the main characters in the film as well. So yeah, those two kids just makes this film take a nosedive for the worst of it. So yeah, Sweet House of Horrors at number 20. And number 19, this is a film that I just can't understand, like, what was this even about? I mean, this is a just confused mess to me. Maybe I will enjoy it more if I rewatched it, but I've heard other people talk about this one, that this is just a film that no one really can explain. But at number 19 we have Manhattan Baby. I mean, the one positive thing that really sticks out in this film is the music by Fabio Frizzi, I believe his name is. Um, and this also has the character of Bob from House by the Cemetery shows up in this one. I don't think his character is that annoying in this one as it is in House by the Cemetery. But this is just a film that is too much all over the place, and even though it has nice cinematography and nice like looking locations, that can't help the film, and I don't really know how to describe this film myself. So yeah, Manhattan Baby at number 19. Number 18, we have a film which I thought was going to be one of the very worst ones, but yeah, number 18, we have Sodoma's Ghost. I don't think this is as bad as many people make it out to be. I think it's creepy. The house, the setting in the house is really great. I mean, if you compare this one with the Sweet House of Horrors, for example, is that the house itself in this film is much more creepy and much more subtle to it because it has a backstory of Nazis that were in this type of building in the Second World War, and they're like partying and at the end of the war, and all of a sudden you see this explosion or whatever that pretty much comes towards the house, and you don't know what else happened after that. And then we flash forward to like 40 or 50 years later, to the 80s, and of course there's some kids discovering this house, and they break in and decide to stay the night because it's almost dark outside. And of course they realize this is not good for them, because there's some, it's like a cursed type of house. I thought this had a really nice atmosphere to it, and some, I mean, the gore effects that were in this film were really creepy and really cool. One of the only thing, not the only things, but one of the few things that I did not like about this film was the very end of the film, which just felt like a punch in the gut, not in a good way. Sort of rushed in a way, but then again, it was a made-for-TV film, so yeah. That was Sodoma's Ghost at number 18. At number 17, we have Demonia. Also, I mean, a little bit forgettable, but at the same time, it builds up with these underground sequences in this crypt type of. I mean, it really looks like some underground crypt and the nuns and all that. It's kind of creepy, really. It's once again, this is a very like hard film to describe to anyone who hasn't seen it, but yeah, Demonia at number 17. Now, if you excuse me. Sting some coffee before it really gets cold. After that, at number 16, we have The House of Clocks. Now, this is a film that I probably think you would enjoy much more if you've only seen it once, because once you've seen some of these films, they are like not as effective as you did like the first time you watch it. I mean, that's really the case for most films, even films that are really good. You tend to not like enjoy maybe something that you really enjoy the first time, and you see flaws or something like that in the films in themselves. But it's basically about these like thieves basically breaking into this house of clocks, basically just to steal some things. And of course, they discover there's something really creepy going on in this house. And yeah, House of Clocks at number 16. And at number 15, this is kind of a surprise because this is the one that, according to IMDb, this was released in '94, but it was made in '91. So yeah, Voices from Beyond, about this girl that has to figure out what really killed her father, because they just thought it was just some heart attack or something when they tried to investigate this death. And told people that, oh, he died of a stomach ulcer or something. And of course the daughter pretty much can hear her own father through in some weird way. It sort of reminded me of how Obi-Wan talked with Luke in A New Hope. It's sort of like that. That's the way they communicate with each other. So it's basically up to these two to figure out who really killed the father and why, and yeah, in what way. So yeah, really, I mean, really interesting, and the characters are really entertaining as well. Not entertaining, they are really interesting, and the concept is quite unique as well in a way, I would say. So yeah, Voices from Beyond at number 15. Number 14 is, I think this is might be one of those that I have very like fond memories of. I mean, this is one. I think this was one of the very first Fulci films that I ever watched. And the film is called A Cat in the Brain from 1990, I believe. I actually watched it on the IMDb page. That's the reason why I keep looking at this direction. But yeah, number 14, Cat in the Brain. I know many people tend to not like this film too much because this has some other like footage from other films that he's directed before, or I think even other like Italian films. And people have described this to me as, oh, it's just Lucio Fulci walking around his house for 1 hour and 30 minutes. But I thought the whole concept to this was really interesting. It's basically about Lucio Fulci playing himself being a gore director, and he all of a sudden he just snaps and he gets crazy and has all of these weird visions. Uh, Really memorable soundtrack, in my opinion, I believe, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, A Cat in the Brain at number 14. At number 13, we have The Psychic, which I think has a very similar tone to it as A Lizard in a Woman's Skin and Don't Touch Your Duckling. I think all of those three films have very similar themes to one another. I mean, it's just the whole tone to the films. But it's basically about this woman that tries to figure out who killed this other woman because she finds out through in some weird way that there is something inside of the wall. So on this house, which she has, I think it's her fiance's house or her husband's house. Um, and for some reason she just knows there's something in the wall, so she starts to use like a pickaxe and just tries to slam into the walls, and she finds a skeleton in there. So someone has killed this woman before and just put her in the wall, and it's basically about her trying to solve this case and like who's responsible and whatnot. So yeah, very atmospheric as well. So yeah, The Psychic at number 13. At number 12, I think people would be surprised that I ranked this as high as I did, but Touch of Death is at number 12 from 1988. This is, I think I like this one because it kind of reminded me of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I know that's a very weird way to describe this film, but I would say if Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer had more comedic parts to it, you would probably get Touch of Death. But it's basically about this guy killing off pretty ugly women. Sorry to say that, but they don't look. I mean, the whole film itself looks very sleazy because the main guy also looks very sleazy, and yeah, it's kind of gross in some ways as well. But it has a very special dark tone or dark atmosphere to it, which is also comedic at the same time. So I thought the mix of that was really interesting to watch. So yeah, Touch of Death at number 12. And at number 11 we have Enigma, which I've been told that some people compare this to, not compare it with, but it has a similar tone like Carrie has. It's basically about this woman trying to kill off some of the bullies that she's been bullied by before. And the one scene that really sticks out for me in this one is the snail or the slugs. I'm not sure if it's snails or slugs, but all over the body, and that's a very memorable scene. That's the most memorable scene from the film, and it has a very 80s soundtrack to it as well, which I really liked. So yeah, Enigma at number 11. Talking about 80s type films, the next one is another one that I think is a little bit underrated, but yeah, number 10 we have Murder Rock. And this is a very weird thing to say. This is I hate to like compare films with one another, especially if they're not too relatable with one another or whatever. So, but anyway, if you imagine if Lucio Fulci directed Flashdance, you would get Murder Rock. I know that sounds really weird, but great like choreography, I would say, in this film. Dance sequences, the music is great, and really interesting murder mystery. I kept guessing who the killer might be. It's basically about this killer going around killing competition in this dance group or dance class that are very talented. So it just feels like someone is jealous of these ladies, or like yeah, they just wants to take their place or something. So I'm not gonna spoil anything about that, but really interesting and really fun Fulci film that I think deserves more love. So yeah, Murder Rock at number 10. And at number 9 we have The Black Cat. Maybe I like this so much because I love cats, and the way I mean, if you know this story, because I think this has been made so many times in like movies or whatever, but I love to see the cat get some revenge and like punching people overall. So and the music is just so soothing and so great. Cinematography top notch. Some really nice score effects in this one as well. I mean, this is still not that gory or that bloody. So if you want to start with a Fulci film that aren't really that gruesome, I would say Black Cat is probably a good start, like somewhere to start with. So yeah, The Black Cat number 9. Let's see. I'm just gonna take another sip right there. And at number 8 we have Now this is a film that I remember. This is another one which I watched like for the first time very many years ago. The first time I watched this, I didn't care too much for it. I thought the killer was annoying, but I rewatched it. I've watched it numerous of times after that, and the movie is The New York Ripper at number 8. Um, a serial killer going around New York killing people in gruesome ways, sounding like Donald Duck, while he like phones the or like calls the authorities just to mock them, basically. Really gruesome, really like sleazy type things. I mean, it has somewhat of a similar tone to it as Maniac. Yeah, I would say yeah, New York Ripper is a film that you probably will, if you rewatch it, you might like it more the next time you watch it, because like I said before, I didn't care too much for it the first time I watched it. So yeah. And at number 7, I know people will bash on me for this one, but this is so damn entertaining and chaotic, and I just gotta love it. Zombie 3, also known as Zombie Flesh Eaters 2. Um, oh wow! I mean, where to even begin? I mean, this is probably the one that is least Fulci, because Fulci was about to make this film in, I think it was the Philippines, or maybe I'm not too sure. If it was, I think it was the Philippines, but he was sent there to make this film, and unfortunately he got sick while he was staying down there, because I think he had a stroke or something. So basically, Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragasso had to step in and finish the project. So, and in the end, you get a very chaotic like type of film. You can sort of see where Bruno Mattei and Claudio Fragasso started to take control of the project, and what type of scenes or scenarios that were made by Fulci himself. So yeah, I mean, this is a really entertaining, cheesy film. I love this one. Yeah, Zombie 3, Zombie Flesh Eaters 2 at number 7. And at number 6 is, yeah, the next one that in that series or whatever, not the next one, but the previous one. Uh, Zombie 2 at number 6, also known as Zombie, also known as Zombie Flesh Eaters. I know that's a really confused thing, but for those of you who know your Fulci biography or whatever, you probably know what film I'm talking about. But great practical effects, some of the most memorable zombie films of all time, because of the whole makeup to the zombies themselves, and the whole underwater scene with the shark and the zombie is just amazing to watch. Just the way that they were able to do that is just baffling to me, especially for like a film from the 70s. Yeah, Zombie 2. If you haven't seen this one, this is one of the better like zombie films you can watch, and especially if you like practical effects, this one really delivers. So yeah, Zombie 2, also known as Zombie, also known as Zombie Flesh Eaters, at number 6. And at number 5, we have City of the Living Dead, which is the is this the first? Yeah, I think this is the first part of the Gates of Hell trilogy. Uh, Once again, it's like this curse about this priest that commits suicide and leaves like some sort of curse behind him, and there's people that are having visions about this one, and they have to pretty much figure out where this priest is buried and just try to kill the curse off, basically, because before the whole town goes bonkers, basically. Once again, when it comes to Fulci, great practical effects, great gore sequences. There's a really great scene where this lady like just regurgitates her entire like intestines coming out from her mouth, which I think is really creepy and very well made for its time, and also the whole blood coming out of her eyes. Um, Very many memorable scenes in this one, in my opinion, and the soundtrack is truly amazing as well. So it feels like I'm repeating myself over and over again, but I mean, this is pretty much what Fulci was known for, especially in his best days. So yeah. So City of the Living Dead at number 5. At number 4, we have this one. Really surprised me. I loved this film. Lizard in a woman's skin, great mystery, great. I mean, I thought this was going to be more like sleazy than it actually was, because I had described it for me before I watched this, like, oh, this is going to be super sleazy. There are some sleaze here and there, but sometimes I wouldn't say sleaze is bad, but I would say if they overuse sleaze, it just gets irritating after a while, because I mean, you don't want to see that all the time. It just loses some of its charm to it, if that makes any sense to about that. But this also has Florinda, what's her name, Florinda Balkan in it, and she's also in Don't Torture a Duckling. So yeah, great and amazing soundtrack once again. I don't know what else to say about Lizard in a Woman's Skin other than check it out if you like murder mystery type films in general. So yeah, Lizard in a Woman's Skin at number 4. And number 3 is the Lost. Is this no? This is the second one in the Gates of Hell trilogy. The Beyond at number 3. What to even say about this one that hasn't already been said? Great, grimy, awesome gore, splatter type thing. Also very disgusting in some parts, and it really delivers on that. I don't want to say too much about this one. This is a film that you should not know too much about before going into it. And I mean, I watched these films not in the chronological order when I watched the Gates of Hell trilogy. I mean, you can watch them separately. You don't need to have watched City of the Living Dead before watching The Beyond or whatever. So I mean, a really great trilogy in general. So yeah, The Beyond at number 3. At number 2, we have the last one in the Gates of Hell trilogy, House by the Cemetery. Sorry, I just completely lost track there. The real, I mean, I love this film. There's almost nothing about this film that I don't like. Everything is almost perfect, except for Bob, the child actor. I think they probably made. I'm not too sure, but I think they made some interview with the guy who did the dubbing, or if it was Bob himself, but I think even both of them said that they were not pleased with the end result. I don't think anyone really is, but I mean, if you've seen this film numerous of times, you don't really care too much about it anyway. So yeah, House by the Cemetery at number 2. And there's one film left, which is my number 1. I mean, House by the Cemetery was at number 1 for the longest time until I watched this film. And I think also Fulci himself said that this is the film that he was most pleased with out of his entire catalog of films, all the films he directed. So, and at number 1 we have Don't Torture a Duckling, which was so extremely controversial when it came out because of the whole criticization. I think he criticized pretty much the entire film. It's just like a criticization of the Christianity, basically. So the church, because there's pretty many people in Italy that are quite religious, to say the least. So when this came out, people just thought, well, we need to ban this film, and this disgusting director shouldn't be able to make another film again. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about it. It's basically about murders taking place in this small town, or like this small village or whatever, and there's children getting killed off. I mean, you don't see too much of the killing itself, which is a good thing, because when it comes to kids, I mean, it can tend to be very like disgusting in a way, and there's some really creepy. The entire film is very creepy. Like, it has a very creepy tone to it, which just sticks with it. And once you realize like who's responsible for this and like what is going on, you are just like, wow, this is great, and I can see why it was controversial when it came out. So yeah, I don't want to say too much about it other than that, but yeah, great Fulci film. This is definitely a film that I can see myself like watching over and over again. So yeah, but that's my entire ranking of Lucio Fulci's horror films. I know he's also made other films, which is the ones that I have seen other than that is just, I think it's just the Western film he did, like Six of the, no, what's it called? Of the Apocalypse, whatever it's called. I can't remember the name of that, but I also have the Gladiators like film, which I can't remember the title of either. And then I also did that Conquest film, which is like a sci-fi film. So yeah, I still have some Fulci films left to watch, and I also recently picked up a box set which was released by Arrow, which has A Massacre Time in it, which is another Western film. that I haven't seen. So yeah, enough about that. That's just my the thing of films I have to look forward to. But hope you enjoy this video, and make sure, I mean, this is just my personal opinion. I don't say this is the right opinion, or, I mean, everyone can have their own opinion. This is just the ranking as it is right now, and sometimes it tends to go in other directions sometimes when it comes to rankings. If I would do this film or like this ranking video in like a year, maybe it would be a complete different order. But this is just how it is right now. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and keep your eyes open for the next video. And yeah, see you next time. Bye bye.